So now that we've gone through step 1 of munging the data and step 2 of running LD score regression, we're at the stage of actually running genomics-M and specifying the structural model at the genome-wide level, which is achieved doing the user model function within the genomics-M package. So as you heard in the prior videos, genomics-M is motivated by the observation that genetic correlations across traits are not simply a matter of a single strong pairwise correlation. Instead, you've got really high genetic correlations across multivariate systems of traits, which requires extending this bivariate method LD score regression to the multivariate space to try and understand shared and unique genetic architecture. So that's where genomic structural equation modeling came in, which in 5 seconds is a framework for modeling patterns of genetic associations across broad constellations of traits using GWAS data as input, as we've seen in these more practical focused videos. So I have an entire video on how to specify the Lavon syntax, but just as a brief refresher here, as we're getting ready to specify a model in genomics-M, regressions are specified using a single tilde between two variables with the outcome on the left-hand side and the predictor on the right-hand side. The covariance is specified using two tildes. The variable with itself is its variance or residual variance if it's a predicted outcome, and the covariance between two variables is here when you list it between A and B. To specify loadings on a factor, the latent is specified on the left-hand side, where here we have a latent factor that we're calling F1, that you could name it anything you want, equals tilde, and then these are our GWAS data that we've input, A, B, C, and D. You can fix a parameter by specifying it with the number and then an asterisk on the parameter, so this would fix the covariance between A and B to 1. And you can also name a parameter by, instead of putting a number before the asterisk, doing a letter or combination of letters here. So here I'm just naming the covariance between A and B little a, and so this would allow me to do something like put a model constraint on the parameter. So this can be useful if you get things like Haywood cases where you have a negative residual variance on a variable, and if it's just outside of bounds, maybe you're naming the parameter to then fix it to be above 0 in the model. So user model only needs two required arguments. The first is that output from LDSC that we just made in the last video, which includes that genetic covariance S matrix and that sampling covariance V matrix. And those two pieces are what is used to then run the model, which is the second argument that's being supplied. So this is the model that is being estimated, written using that Lavon syntax that I was showing in the last slide and is reviewed more thoroughly in that other video. User model, like many of the genomics-M functions, has other arguments that I'm not necessarily going over here, but some key optional arguments that I would highlight are std.lv. So this is shorthand in Lavon for standardized latent variable. And what this does is it tells the model that you want to fix the variance of all the factors to 1 so that they are identified. So with a latent factor, you either need to fix a loading to a certain number or fix the variance of the factor to a certain number. Since it's an unobserved variable, it needs to be scaled relative to some aspect of the data that's being provided. Here, we're doing what I would consider the most common practice in the field, which is to fix the latent variance to 1, though that's certainly not required in structural equation modeling more generally. Another argument is imp_cov, so this stands for implied covariance matrix. This is telling genomics-M and specifically user model that within the output, you want the model implied covariance matrix that you get using path tracing rules for structural equation modeling, and you want the residual covariance matrix. So this is the difference between the observed data and the implied covariance matrix, i.e. kind of the error in the model estimation. This implied matrix and specifically the residual matrix can be useful for troubleshooting model fit issues. Model fit is something that is primarily calculated using that residual matrix as part of the input. And so looking at where in the model you're potentially getting more misfit. Is there a covariance between two of your variables that is just not being captured? And would a residual covariance potentially more accurately capture the data in your model? Would also add though here that you do want to be careful to avoid overfitting the data. And as a reminder, the goal is also not just to get the best possible fitting model. That can always be achieved by fitting a maximally complex model where you have 0 degrees of freedom and perfect model fit. But really the goal is to find that balance between parsimony and model fit. Now let's go to the code. So here I'm actually just going to load in the LDSC data that we created in the last video, which I saved up here using the save function as a our data object. And then I'm going to supply argument 1 covstruct as that LDSC list object. And then I'm going to specify the model, that second argument, where here I'm specifying a common factor model across MDD, PTSD, alcohol, and anxiety, which we could think of as roughly approximating what is referred to in the literature as an internalizing factor. And here I'm also going to use that optional argument of std.lv equals true, which is telling it that I want the variance of that factor fixed to 1 for model identification. Here we're going to run the model. It runs in 0.17 seconds. It's a very simple model. On average, I wouldn't expect any model to run for more than a few minutes. And there are 2 pieces of output in the model that we can look at. The first is the actual model output. So here, just to orient you to the different columns here, this is the left-hand side, right-hand side, and operator in Lavon, where this is telling you basically what parameter is being estimated. So these first 4 rows are the factor loadings, and these last 4 rows are the residual variances. And here we have the factor variance that is set to 1 and doesn't have a standard error because we use that std.lv equals true argument. The next column is the unstandardized estimate and unstandardized standard error. This is the model results when applied to the genetic covariance matrix that has the heritabilities on the diagonal. STD genotype and STD genotype standard error is the model applied to the genetic correlation matrix, where those heritabilities are now rescaled to unit variance of 1, and the off diagonals of the S matrix reflect the genetic correlations. Oftentimes, I will report this standardized output when I'm creating something like a path diagram or reporting model results in a paper. The arguments can be made for both being informative, which is why both are provided here. Finally, STD all reflects the standardized all column, meaning that both the observed variables are standardized, which is true over here in the STD genotype columns, but also the latent factors are standardized. Overall, these are mirroring the STD genotype column. The only difference you would expect here is if you have a latent variable that is unstandardized in these other columns, but in this case, our latent variable is standardized for all of them, so you get effectively the same results as an STD genotype. And then finally, you have the p-value column here. The second piece we can look at here is the model fit. So if we just zoom in on this here, this has a couple pieces of information. The first is the model chi-square and degrees of freedom, and the p-value on that model chi-square. So this is a classic measure of model fit in structural equation modeling. Here, the chi-square test is not significant. That's a good thing. That means that the model implied matrix does not significantly deviate from the observed matrix. But I would caution that typically speaking, model chi-square is not interpretable for GWAS data because it is highly sensitive to sample size. It's a test statistic that is more tuned to samples that tend to be in the thousands, not the hundreds of thousands. So if you get a significant model chi-square, don't panic. This test is overly sensitive at GWAS sample sizes, but can still be useful for model comparisons and other use cases, so it's provided here. The main things that I'm going to be looking at in this output are the CFI and the SRMR in these last 2 columns here. So CFI is the comparative fit index, where values closer to 1 are considered better fit, higher than 0.9 is considered acceptable fit, and SRMR, the lower the value, the better. SRMR of 0 is perfect fit, less than 0.1 is considered acceptable, less than 0.08 is considered good, less than 0.05 in the excellent range. But these are very subjective and somewhat arbitrary cutoffs that are based largely on simulations, based on phenotypic data. These are rough cutoffs in the same way that p less than 0.05 has always been the subjective cutoff that the field went with. AIC is a relative measure of fit that can be used to consider different models even when they're not nested. But typically speaking, I'm focusing on what we refer to as absolute measures of fit, where there's meaning in these values beyond comparing to another model, in that I can use those subjective model fit cutoffs to evaluate whether or not this individual model is fitting the data well. So what I would say here is this is providing excellent fit to the data, unsurprising, internalizing, described in the twin and phenotypic literature. These are highly correlated disorders, both genetically and phenotypically. So when we fit this common factor model, even though it is a more parsimonious representation of the data, we do have 2 degrees of freedom here, it is still providing excellent fit. So that is the rundown of how you specify user model. You can certainly specify more complicated and multifactorial models, and we'll get some practice with that for the in-person or the live sessions during the workshop. In the last 2 videos, I'm going to talk about these optional steps for running a multivariate GWAS. So within genomics-M, there's a number of different extensions at the gene expression, functional, and individual genetic variant level, but by no means are you required to use all of the different extensions within a single project or manuscript. I often have manuscripts that just look at the genome-wide analyses because we can think of these as informative on their own. But in other cases, maybe you're interested in estimating, for example, SNP effects on a latent factor. That's what these next 2 videos are going to go over.